And we are very close to the point when, unlike the KGB and unlike the Catholic Church, Facebook or Google will be able to understand you better than you understand yourself, because they will have the data, they will have the biological knowledge, and they will have the computing power necessary to understand exactly how you feel and why you feel the way that you feel. Now we are seeing the rise of a new worldview or a new ideology, which we can call dataism, because it believes that authority in the end comes from data. And dataism shifts back authority to the clouds, to the Google cloud, to the Microsoft cloud. And dataism tells people, don't listen to your feelings, listen to Google, listen to Amazon. They know how you feel, and they also know why you feel the way that you feel. And therefore, they can make better decisions on your behalf.
So what is big data? Big data is really the aggregation of as many individual data points that you can possibly get your hands on, which are then synthesized in one database of record, cleaned or hygiened, and then used to inform and create insight on your target audience. This could include demographic and geographic factors, age, gender, ethnicity, religion, and so forth. Or psychographic or attitudinal factors. This is consumer and lifestyle habits, what car you drive, what products you purchase in shops, what magazines you read, what golf clubs you belong to, what churches you attend. And of course, personality or behavioral data. This is what we talked about earlier, how you see the world, what actually drives you.
Once you have the behavioral surplus, the comprehensive behavioral data of hundreds of millions of people, you can start predicting the preferences of specific groups.
Blanket advertising. Blanket advertising, the idea that 100 million people will receive the same piece of direct mail, the same television advert, the same digital advert, is dead. My children will certainly never ever understand this concept of mass communication. Today, communication is becoming ever increasingly targeted. It's being individualized for every single person in this room. So you will no longer be receiving adverts on products and services that you don't care about. Rather, you'll only receive adverts that not only are on the products and services, or in the case of elections, issues that you care about most, but that have been nuanced in order to reflect the way you see the world.
A massive part of the smart meter agenda is to literally track every single movement within a house. So every time somebody switches on a light, every time somebody switches on an appliance, each of these appliances has a unique code, which is then effectively transmitted through the smart meter down the grid. So anybody that is minded to do so can hone in on an individual residence and actually track what is going on in that household.
So they can figure out, when is your refrigerator being used? When is your TV on? What are you doing with your energy? And they're going to start having a profile of you as an individual.
A congressional research report all but concluded that smart meters in the United States are a violation of the Fourth Amendment. In no uncertain terms, the court has asserted that at the very core of the Fourth Amendment stands the right of a man to retreat into his home and there be free from unreasonable government intrusion. With smart meters, police will have access to data that might be used to track residents' daily lives and routines while in their homes, including their eating, sleeping, and showering habits, what appliances they use and when, and whether they prefer the television to the treadmill, among a host of other details. And while some utilities are still saying that all of the in-home private data they collect on you will be kept safely tucked away, another picture seems to be emerging. In the summer of 2013, these newfound intentions became evident. The San Francisco Chronicle revealed that California's electric utilities last year disclosed the energy use records and other personal information of thousands of customers to agencies within the US government.
6 years ago, smart meters were pretty rare. Today, 60 million consumers have access to detailed information about how much energy we use, how we use it, when we use it.
The most exciting thing for me is that we have an entire organization that's gotten behind data as an asset for the first time in our company's history. And we get a lot of data. We do 221 million meter reads a day, which creates about a terabyte of data every day. We can mine that data. Centerpoint Energy actually works with a variety of government entities in terms of ensuring that we are well positioned.
In early 2015, a high-level utility commissioner admitted that the residential surveillance data gathered by smart meters will be worth a lot more than the electricity itself, which is a $2.2 trillion market.
As General Petraeus has said, make no mistake about it, we have the ability to spy on your households through your appliances. And if we have that ability, we probably will use it.
I mean, this is control freakery. It is the wet dream of the technocrats. People who live locked in a left brain construct that has no room for anything spiritual in their lives.
What you're seeing is the establishment of a surveillance society. You're seeing the establishment of a surveillance network. It raises the specter of kind of the rise of soft tyranny. It raises the specter of you're automatically suspicious until we prove that you're not. It raises the specter of a universal, I would call it a universal wiretap, a persistent universal wiretap on every single person. Or if it's not, they can create one. And what happens if they don't like you? What happens if you speak ill will against the government? What happens if you say something they consider disloyal? I mean, that's not the country that I took an oath to defend 4 times in my government career.
What's the mindset of these mammoth corporations who are now apparently in partnership with government?
Eric Schmidt is Google's CEO.
People are treating Google like their most trusted friend. Should they be?
If you have something that you don't want anyone to know, maybe you shouldn't be doing it in the first place.
Google has already been caught and fined for systematically hacking and harvesting passwords from millions of private Wi-Fi networks with its mapping cars, and illegally siphoning private data from iPhone users.
We don't need you to type at all, because we know where you are, with your permission. We know where you've been, with your permission. We can more or less guess what you're thinking about.
So Schmidt simply views the invasion of privacy as a way to allow the internet giant to gain more information about you. And then that data will let the search engine help you in your everyday life. Don't you get it? Google is trying to amass a huge amount of personal information about you to help you. Duh.
There's what I call the creepy line, and the Google policy about a lot of these things is to get right up to the creepy line but not cross it. I would argue that implanting things in your brain is beyond the creepy line.
Mine in particular.
Yes, at least for the moment, until the technology gets better. Let's talk a little bit about information and search.
Wait a minute, what was that?
I would argue that implanting things in your brain is beyond the creepy line.
Mine in particular.
At least for the moment, until the technology gets better.
Is he saying that Google's creepy line is defined only by the current level of technology? What does a higher level of technology have to do with morals or ethics?
But what I learned in Silicon Valley was there is no moral component to technology unless humans insist that it be there.
What more do you need to know? But most people seem to want to just close their mind to it and just say, oh, the government wouldn't do that, and that can't be true. It is true, and once you know it's true, you get this question in your mind of how did they think they could get away with it, and what in the world are they trying to do with all this data? Why do they need to get into our lives this deeply?
My research has led me to believe that the controlling elite are trying to create a global cashless currency, And one of the ways that they intend to do this is to base it on carbon credits. Basically what that means is they're going to dole out your use of energy dependent on your behavior. And they want to be able to control it themselves. So these things that they're installing, the meters and the appliances with both sending and receiving transmitters, would allow them to not only monitor, but to control every appliance in your house. What is it that makes the government think that they can usher us into a totalitarian state at all, much less without us even noticing?
We are Onzo. We help energy utilities globally to build better relationships with their customers, serve them more efficiently, and serve them in a more effective way. How do we do this? We take energy consumption data from smart meters and sensors. We analyze it using our patented algorithms and build a highly personalized profile for each and every utility customer. We then tag this profile with the key behavioral, attitudinal, and lifestyle characteristics that we identify. We even tag the appliances that we see being used in the home. We then use this characterized profile to give the utility 3 things. 1. Customer engagement apps that educate the end customer, build levels of trust, and ultimately reduce customer churn. 2. A detailed description of each end customer that helps the utility to provide more appropriate services and highly targeted sales campaigns. 3. The ability to monetize their customer data by providing a direct link to appropriate third-party organizations based on the customer's identified character. So, from a very thin stream of energy consumption data, Onzo delivers significant business value for as little as the price of a cup of coffee.
It seemed to me that whether it's a terrorism threat or an apparent energy crisis, or an obsession to modernize technology without purpose, what's being consistently implied is that we must now willingly give up our basic human rights. I had to wonder, what if we are being systematically fed a false paradigm?
When you live in a world of terrorists and madmen, when every bad thing that happens on every corner of the earth is in your living room by the end of the day, a world where your nearest neighbor is potentially a foreign enemy, rights begin to look like a vulnerability. We're going to be talking about surveillance in our lives. This means we're going to be talking about power. Whether we're talking about Facebook, determining what ads you see, or something rather more concrete, information today is a convenient means. It's a mechanism for attaining a certain power. And that power today is control. Surveillance technologies have outpaced democratic controls. A generation ago, surveillance was extremely expensive. There was a natural limitation imposed upon it. That is, the governments had to spend huge, extraordinary sums to track lone, isolated individuals. To know a particular person's location might involve many teams of officers, both in buildings and out on the streets, working in shifts. But today, that dynamic is reversed. One guy sitting in front of a monitor can track with precision an unimaginably large number of people. For the first time in human history, it's both technologically and financially feasible for governments to track and store nearly complete records of our private lives. Now, this is not science fiction. This is happening now. When we look at the construction of facilities such as this, the NSA's data center in Bluffdale, this was called by them the MDR, the Massive Data Repository. They called it that for a reason. This was not the targeted data repository. This was not something that was designed just to watch this person or that person. It's because they were ingesting everything, everywhere, and saving it in case it might be of interest later, in case something came up. Someone who previously there was no justification to watch, someone who had committed no crime, someone who was an ordinary person would have their life captured, crystallized, compressed, and stored perfectly, timelessly for 5 years or more, just in case they wanted to look at them. And this is what's happening today. Even in developed democracies, places that should know better, in the past few months, the United Kingdom passed the most extreme surveillance bill in the history of Western democracy, called the Investigatory Powers Bill. It takes everything the NSA was doing, institutionalizes it, and expands it to a level of intrusive detail that truly is beyond what we have seen the worst police states in history have within their authorities to go after. This is a law so authoritarian and so abusive that experts say it goes farther than laws like China and Russia, which I think we can all agree are no friend to civil liberties. China is passing new intrusive surveillance bills that are modeled after the US's own bills very carefully so that the US cannot criticize them for using the same powers to abuse their citizens' rights. We are witnessing the construction of a world in which the most common political value is fear. The programs that I revealed that everybody was saying was, oh my God, this is necessary, the defense of the country, everything's going to end if the secret gets out. The president himself, Barack Obama, appointed 2 independent investigative commissions in the wake of the revelations of 2013, who looked into these mass surveillance programs. They had complete access to classified information. They interviewed the CIA director, NSA director, FBI director, all these guys. And they could not find a single instance in more than 10 years of operation where this kind of mass surveillance had not only saved a life, right? It had never done that. They said it had never even made a, quote, concrete difference in the outcome of any counterterrorism investigation. Why are politicians justifying programs on the basis of saving lives, of countering terrorism, that for more than a decade have never shown any value for countering terrorism? They're not stupid, right? Governments aren't, they're many things, but they're not often incompetent across all levels, particularly at the working level, right? When you go high up as decision makers, you might get some questionable decisions. But the real answer is these programs were never about terrorism. They do have value. Mass surveillance has value, just not for saving lives. It is valuable for traditional espionage, diplomatic manipulation, economic espionage, and social influence, right? Controlling the narrative, shaping the way the world thinks about issues and understanding what everybody's thinking, who is connected to who. These programs are about power. Privacy versus security, and they say that's what this is about. This is not what that's about. They are not competing values. When privacy increases of a person, their security increases. If no one knows what you're up to, no one can take action against you. No one can basically make you vulnerable. When you're being watched and recorded everywhere you go, not only are you becoming less private, you are becoming less secure. What this is really about is this is about liberty versus surveillance, not versus security or anything else like that.
The question of why privacy matters, a question that has arisen in the context of a global debate enabled by the revelations of Edward Snowden that the United States and its partners, unbeknownst to the entire world, has converted the internet, once heralded as an unprecedented tool of liberation and democratization, into an unprecedented zone of mass indiscriminate surveillance. There is a very common sentiment that arises in this debate, even among people who are uncomfortable with mass surveillance, which says that there's no real harm that comes from this large-scale invasion because only people who are engaged in bad acts have a reason to want to hide and to care about their privacy. This worldview is implicitly grounded in the proposition that there are 2 kinds of people in the world, good people and bad people. Bad people are those who plot terrorist attacks or who engage in violent criminality and therefore have reasons to want to hide what they're doing, have reasons to care about their privacy. But by contrast, good people are people who go to work, come home, raise their children, watch television. They use the internet not to plot bombing attacks, but to read the news or exchange recipes or to plan their kids' Little League games. And those people are doing nothing wrong and therefore have nothing to hide and no reason to fear the government monitoring them. The people who are actually saying that are engaged in a very extreme act of self-deprecation. What they're really saying is, I have agreed to make myself such a harmless and unthreatening and uninteresting person that I actually don't fear having the government know what it is that I'm doing. This mindset has found what I think is its purest expression in a 2009 interview with the longtime CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt, who, when asked about all the different ways his company is causing invasions of privacy for hundreds of millions of people around the world, said this. He said, "If you're doing something that you don't want other people to know, maybe you shouldn't be doing it in the first place." Now, there's all kinds of things to say about that mentality. The first of which is that the people who say that privacy isn't really important, they don't actually believe it. And the way you know that they don't actually believe it is that while they say with their words that privacy doesn't matter, with their actions they take all kinds of steps to safeguard their privacy. They put passwords on their email and their social media accounts. They put locks on their bedroom and bathroom doors, all steps designed to prevent other people from entering what they consider their private realm and knowing what it is that they don't want other people to know. The very same Eric Schmidt, the CEO of Google, ordered his employees at Google to cease speaking with the online internet magazine CNET after CNET published an article full of personal, private information about Eric Schmidt, which it obtained exclusively through Google searches and using other Google products. This same division can be seen with the CEO of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, who in an infamous interview in 2010 pronounced that privacy is no longer a, quote, social norm. Last year, Mark Zuckerberg and his new wife purchased not only their own house, but also all 4 adjacent houses in Palo Alto for a total of $30 million in order to ensure that they enjoyed a zone of privacy that prevented other people from monitoring what they do in their personal lives. Over the last 16 months, as I've debated this issue around the world, every single time somebody has said to me, I don't really worry about invasions of privacy because I don't have anything to hide, I always say the same thing to them. I get out a pen, I write down my email address, I say, here's my email address. What I want you to do when you get home is email me the passwords to all of your email accounts. Not just the nice, respectable work one in your name, but all of them. Because I want to be able to just troll through what it is you're doing online, read what I want to read, and publish whatever I find interesting. After all, if you're not a bad person, if you're doing nothing wrong, you should have nothing to hide. Not a single person has taken me up on that offer. I check that email account religiously all the time. It's a very desolate place. And there's a reason for that, which is that we as human beings, even those of us who in words disclaim the importance of our own privacy, instinctively understand the profound importance of it. It is true that as human beings we're social animals, which means we have a need for other people to know what we're doing and saying and thinking, which is why we voluntarily publish information about ourselves online. But equally essential to what it means to be a free and fulfilled human being is to have a place that we can go and be free of the judgmental eyes of other people. There's a reason why we seek that out, and that reason is that all of us, not just terrorists and criminals, all of us have things to hide. There are all sorts of things that we do and think that we're willing to tell our physician or our lawyer or our psychologist or our spouse or our best friend that we would be mortified for the rest of the world to learn. We make judgments every single day about the kinds of things that we say and think and do that we're willing to have other people know, and the kinds of things that we say and think and do that we don't want anyone else to know about. People can very easily in words claim that they don't value their privacy, but their actions negate the authenticity of that belief. The last point I want to observe about this mindset, the idea that only people who are doing nothing wrong have things to hide and therefore reasons to care about privacy, is that it entrenches 2 very destructive messages, 2 destructive lessons. The first of which is that the only people who care about privacy, the only people who will seek out privacy are by definition bad people. This is a conclusion that we should have all kinds of reasons for avoiding. The most important of which is that when you say somebody who's doing bad things, You probably mean things like plotting a terrorist attack or engaging in violent criminality, a much narrower conception of what people who wield power mean when they say doing bad things. For them, doing bad things typically means doing something that poses meaningful challenges to the exercise of our own power. The other really destructive and I think even more insidious lesson that comes from accepting this mindset is there's an implicit bargain that people who accept this mindset have accepted. And that bargain is this: if you're willing to render yourself sufficiently harmless, sufficiently unthreatening to those who wield political power, then and only then can you be free of the dangers of surveillance. It's only those who are dissidents, who challenge power, who have something to worry about. There are all kinds of reasons why we should want to avoid that lesson as well. You may be a person who right now doesn't want to engage in that behavior, but at some point in the future you might. Even if you're somebody who decides you never want to, the fact that there are other people who are willing to and able to resist and be adversarial to those in power, dissidents and journalists and activists and a whole range of others, is something that brings us all collective good that we should want to preserve. Equally critical is that the measure of how free a society is not how it treats its good, obedient, compliant citizens, but how it treats its dissidents and those who resist orthodoxy.
Many argue that extraordinary powers, right, such as these, are necessary for protecting us or keeping us safe. They use reassuring political language. Perhaps this is true. But we should always be aware that we may not get to choose what it is that we're actually being protected from. Now, I would like to ask you about a particular story that's fairly well known here. This is written by a professor at Georgetown, Alvaro Bedoya, and he wrote about a famous case. Now, the FBI was investigating someone, a prominent religious leader, sort of cleric inside the United States. And the FBI said this guy was in contact with foreign radicals. He's possibly a threat. The Attorney General himself was briefed on the case, personally approved wiretap, said, this is fine, this is what we should be doing, even though this was a US citizen, even though he was born here. He was placed on a watch list to be detained in the event of a national emergency to make sure he couldn't cause trouble. And of everybody the FBI was tracking at the time, the head of the FBI's domestic intelligence unit said he thought this guy was the most dangerous from the standpoint of national security. Do you recognize this case? That assessment that he was the greatest national security threat that we were facing, this was the person we needed to be protected from, was made 2 days after he gave the I Have a Dream speech.
Is that a society in which people can be monitored at all times is a society that breeds conformity and obedience and submission, which is why every tyrant, the most overt to the most subtle, craves that system. Conversely, even more importantly, it is a realm of privacy, the ability to go somewhere where we can think and reason and interact and speak without the judgmental eyes of others being cast upon us, in which creativity and exploration and dissent exclusively reside. And that is the reason why, when we allow a society to exist in which we're subject to constant monitoring, we allow the essence of human freedom to be severely crippled. There are dozens of psychological studies that prove that when somebody knows that they might be watched, the behavior they engage in is vastly more conformist and compliant. Human shame is a very powerful motivator, as is the desire to avoid it. And that's the reason why people, when they're in a state of being watched, make decisions not that are the byproduct of their own agency, but that are about the expectations that others have of them or the mandates of societal orthodoxy. This realization was exploited most powerfully for pragmatic ends by the 18th century philosopher Jeremy Bentham, who set out to resolve an important problem ushered in by the industrial age, where for the first time institutions had become so large and centralized that they were no longer able to monitor and therefore control each one of their individual members. And the solution that he devised was an architectural design originally intended to be implemented in prisons that he called the panopticon. The primary attribute of which was the construction of an enormous tower in the center of the institution, where whoever controlled the institution could at any moment watch any of the inmates, although they couldn't watch all of them at all times. And crucial to this design was that the inmates could not actually see into the panopticon, into the tower, and so they never knew if they were being watched or even when. And what made him so excited about this discovery was that that would mean that the prisoners would have to assume that they were being watched at any given moment, which would be the ultimate enforcer for obedience and compliance. The 20th century French philosopher Michel Foucault realized that that model could be used not just for prisons, but for every institution that seeks to control human behavior: schools, hospitals, factories, workplaces. And what he said was that this mindset, this framework discovered by Bentham, was the key means of societal control for modern Western societies, which no longer need the overt weapons of tyranny, punishing or imprisoning or killing dissidents, or legally compelling loyalty to a particular party, because mass surveillance creates a prison in the mind that is a much more subtle, though much more effective means of fostering compliance with social norms or with social orthodoxy, much more effective than brute force could ever be. The most iconic work of literature about surveillance and privacy is the George Orwell novel 1984, which we all learn in school, and therefore it's almost become a cliche. In fact, whenever you bring it up in a debate about surveillance, people instantaneously dismiss it as inapplicable. And what they say is, oh, well, in 1984, there were monitors in people's homes, they were being watched at every given moment, and that has nothing to do with the surveillance state that we face. That is an actual fundamental misapprehension of the warnings that Orwell issued in 1984. The warning that he was issuing was about a surveillance state, not that monitored everybody at all times, but where people were aware that they could be monitored at any given moment. Here is how Orwell's narrator, Winston Smith, described the surveillance system that they faced. Quote, "There was, of course, no way of knowing whether you were being watched at any given moment." He went on to say, "At any rate, they could plug in your wire whenever they wanted to. You had to live, did live, from habit that became instinct, in the assumption that every sound you made was overheard, and except in darkness, every movement scrutinized."
There already exist a few examples of what a smart city will resemble, including in South Korea. They envision sporting venues using 5G hot zones to deliver personalized video feeds of a customer's favorite player to their mobile device, or allow healthcare providers to test assisted surgery with augmented and virtual reality. Other use cases for the smart city technology include CCTV, traffic control, and smart lighting, where environmentally friendly lights automatically turn off when no one is nearby. Noticeably missing from this endorsement of Samsung's Privacy List City is the fact that these CCTV cameras and devices are recording 24 hours a day and are capable of notifying law enforcement if someone jaywalks, speeds, or whatever other behavior the Crown has deemed illegal. Let's look at another example of a smart city. Quayside is a planned smart city that has been in the works since 2016. Located on 12 acres of waterfront property southeast of downtown Toronto, Canada, Quayside represents a joint effort by the Canadian government agency, Waterfront Toronto, and Sidewalk Labs, which is owned by Google's parent company, Alphabet Inc. Sidewalk Labs claims Quayside will solve traffic congestion, rising home prices, and environmental pollution. There are even plans for housing developments and a school within the smart city. Unfortunately, residents of Quayside will be using a centralized identity management system through which they will access public services such as library cards and healthcare. This means their data will be highly centralized, leaving it open to access by hackers and law enforcement. However, Quayside has consistently faced pushback due to a failure to build in the necessary privacy protections. At least 2 officials involved in the project have resigned. I imagined us creating a smart city of privacy as opposed to a smart city of surveillance. I have to resign because you committed to embedding privacy by design into every aspect of your operation. The fears around Quayside grew in late October 2019 when the Globe and Mail reported on previously unseen documents from Sidewalk Labs, which detail how people living in a sidewalk community would interact with and have access to the space around them. This experience largely depends on how much data you're willing to share, and this data could be used to reward or punish people for their behavior. Although the document, known internally as the Yellow Book, was designed as a pitch book for the company and predates Sidewalk's formal agreements with the City of Toronto, it does provide a vision of what the Google sister company would like to do. Specifically, the document details how Sidewalk would require tax and financing authority to finance and provide services, including the ability to impose, capture, and reinvest property taxes. The document also describes reputation-based tools that sound disturbingly similar to the social credit system we have seen in TV shows like Black Mirror and those unfolding in modern China. These tools would lead to a, quote, new currency for community cooperation, effectively establishing a social credit system. Sidewalk could use these tools to, quote, hold people or businesses accountable while rewarding good behavior with easier access to loans and public services. In response to the document leaks, Sidewalk said, quote, the ideas contained in this 2016 internal paper represent the result of a wide-ranging brainstorming process very early in the company's history. Perhaps due in part to the pushback against privacy invasions, in November 2019, Sidewalk Labs released a 482-page digital innovation appendix stating that none of Quayside's systems will incorporate facial recognition and that Sidewalk Labs won't sell personal information or use it for advertising. Sidewalk Labs says it will require explicit consent to share personal information with third parties. In places like San Diego, activists are already fighting against privacy invasions via environmentally friendly smart streetlights that are always listening. In other places like South Korea, the smart city vision is advancing quite quickly.
A revolution, embracing the possibilities of super-speed 5G mobile internet in a country already one of the world's most digitally connected.
We've led the world in developing 5G technology. As phone makers and service providers, we have set the standards, so we can be the first to release such services into the market.
For most people in South Korea, it's the fun stuff of 5G that's the big draw. Effortless video chatting with as many friends as you want, in any guise you might choose. Real-time video gaming with multiple users and screens. Augmented reality and virtual reality. Even the ability to deliver holograms of your favorite sports or K-pop stars. South Korea's 5G providers are predicting massive uptake, even though only one smartphone maker currently has a device that can handle 5G.
We're expecting at least 1 million of our customers to take up 5G before the end of the year.
Then there's the wider possibilities offered by massive data transmission with hardly any delay. The development of smart cars and eventually driverless vehicles. Managing robots in telemedicine or in industry. Our world is likely to look very different.
For the moment, future residents of Quayside will have their data protected, but these types of systems are already being put into place in China. Under the expansion of China's Sesame credit system, more than 1 million people were denied the right to fly. Chinese citizens live under constant surveillance with CCTVs and facial recognition a part of daily life. The U.S. is not far behind China. The U.S. government is also expanding their facial recognition capabilities, with the FBI maintaining a massive secret database of face prints. The 5G rollout, the growth of artificial intelligence, and the push towards a smart city future will only increase the potential for abuses of privacy. As we move ever closer to this smart city future, privacy and the liberty that comes with privacy are under extreme threat. A threat to local political control. In September 2018, the FCC passed a new rule putting the federal government in complete control of the 5G rollout. Although the original 1996 Telecommunications Act was the first power grab by the federal government, the September 2018 rule made it so that cities and towns had little ability to regulate or avoid the installation of so-called small cells and additional infrastructure needed for the 5G rollout. Under the new rule, phone companies can be charged no more than $270 to install each small cell antenna. Additionally, local authorities would have 60 days to review the proposed wireless infrastructure. localities are already limited in deciding where the equipment can be located. The new rule also continued the tradition of forbidding localities from opposing the equipment on health grounds. The only acceptable claim is based on aesthetics. Basically, if you think the tower looks ugly, they'll turn it into a palm tree for you. The Republicans on the FCC stated that limiting the fees that cities can charge localities will free up capital for them to invest in local infrastructure. Democrat Jessica Rosenworcel was the lone dissenter, calling the rule, quote, extraordinary federal overreach. I do not believe the law permits Washington to run roughshod over state and local authority like this, and I worry the litigation that follows will only slow our 5G future. Rosenworcel was correct about litigation to follow. In the weeks after the October 2018 rule, 24 cities and counties filed lawsuits against the Federal Communications Commission. The matter was only made worse when in April 2019, President Trump issued an executive order about 5G. Local and state bodies must now approve new 5G infrastructure within 90 days. The Trump administration also initiated a cap on the fees local governments can charge telecom companies wanting to install 5G technology.
The FCC has also taken action to streamline the permitting process for 5G infrastructure with state and local governments. That's a big deal. It takes too long to get permits. We're going to free that situation up, and we're going to put limits, and the local areas are going to listen to us very, very strongly. They have a big incentive to do that. They must now approve new physical infrastructure within 90 days instead of many years. It can sometimes take 3, 4, and 5 years. We're going to put a limit of 90 days. And there is now a cap on the unreasonable fees local governments often charge. They get greedy. They think, hey, we can really take advantage, and it ends up that everybody gets hurt. So we're putting a cap on those fees. These changes will contribute greatly to building high-speed networks across America, and it's going to happen very quickly, very, very quickly.
The pushback against the usurpation of local power by the federal government and the big wireless lobby can be seen clearly in the town of Danville, California. Back in March 2019, the Danville Town Council voted 4-1 to block a permit for a 5G small cell installation by Verizon. During the meeting, Danville Mayor Robert Storer stated that the vote was an effort to stand up to the federal government and telecommunications companies like Verizon. The Danville Town Council's decision to deny the land use permit for the small cell opened the town up to possible lawsuits from Verizon.
We've lost local control, and this says, you know what, we're sick of this, and we're not going to just sit here and just be bowled over. We say no, we play the cards out. You know, we've been in lawsuits before. We're actually pretty good at it sometimes. I don't want to say it's been shoved down our throats, but it has been. We've lost complete local control, or we're losing so much of it. This, if nothing else, just puts us in a position that says, you know what, we're a little tired of this. If you're going to come to the town of Danville, don't make this room full of people that are angry, you know, because our job is to protect the town of Danville. And, you know, we may be spending some money here, and I'm okay with that. I'm actually okay with it, because it'll set in place how we feel in the town of Danville and what we think is right.
Danville City Attorney Robert Ewing reiterated that cities cannot fight the small cells or 5G rollout based on health concerns, stating that, quote, while potential health concerns are a huge concern, if that was the basis on which you were making a decision, I would be fairly confident to tell you that you would lose, because that's about as clear as the law can get. Similar resolutions are passing in towns across the world, either outright banning 5G or requiring more testing before implementation. Between the FCC rules and the presidential executive order, the U.S. federal government is working with the big wireless lobby to force 5G down the throats of cities and states around the country. Together, in an incestuous corporate-state relationship, they are slowly taking away choice and consent from local bodies. Most worrisome is the thought that the 5G rollout and the subsequent theft of local power might be setting a precedent for a future where cities and towns have no say in what happens in their own communities, and instead are forced to go along with the agenda of the federal government and their corporate buddies.
These 20 years have been the honeymoon for surveillance capitalism, because they have been 20 years largely unimpeded by law. If we had been trying to stop it, to curtail it, to outlaw it for every one of these 20 years, and we had utterly failed, then I might, put my chin in my hand and say, gosh, I'm starting to feel like things might be really bad. But that's not the case. We haven't even tried yet to stop it.
Hey everyone, this is Derek Bros of the Conscious Resistance Network. I'm here in Standing Rock in North Dakota, the site of the fight against the Dakota Access Pipeline. This is Derek Bros with Activist Post in the Conscious Resistance Network.
We're placing you under arrest. The city of Houston does not welcome you here at all. Please don't run over. Please don't run over me. We got a war criminal right here. Derek Bros, we're at Anarchapulco 2018.
This is Derek Bros with the Conscious Resistance and Activist Post. I'm here in Houston, Texas.
What the fuck?
We've been fighting a long time, and we have all lost so very much, so many loved ones gone. But you are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink. Above all, stay alive. Above all, stay alive. You have no idea. You have no idea. How important you are. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Hey everyone, this is Derek Bros of the Conscious Resistance Network, and today we're going to talk about taking action, getting involved. Stop sitting on your asses, stop waiting for other people to take care of you, stop waiting for November to vote for Joe Biden or Donald Trump, or waiting for any election year to vote and thinking that that's the answer to your problems. So many of you consume my content, whether it's through Facebook, through Float, through the Conscious Resistance, through the BitChute, through Library, or through my website, and you do so as if I am here for your entertainment. And I've done videos talking about how I'm not here for your entertainment, so I'm not going to go into that rant. But what I am going to emphasize is that what we are dealing with is a very real world situation where there are people, friends and family and loved ones that we might know, and strangers out there coexisting in the places we live who believe that violence is justified, who believe that violence is the answer, who do not see violence in putting ankle monitors on people because of COVID-19, who do not think that it's violent to rip people out of their homes because they don't give you all the contact tracing information and tell you where they live and where they're going and who they've seen. People who don't think it's violent to fine people, to arrest people for, for living their lives. We are coexisting with people. I've been debating and battling them lately, probably putting too much attention on social media. But my reason for doing so, friends, is to try to understand this mindset. And also because I want to look them in the faces, or at least talk to them online, and get them to admit that they accept violence and they believe in violence. And sure, they'll try to play semantic games and say, no, that's not violence. They don't give a shit about the Constitution. They don't care about anything as far as preserving liberty for future generations. In fact, many of these people, they think that they are the compassionate ones. They think that they are the loving ones. And I'm the selfish person because I won't put on a mask and because I don't just blindly obey without asking questions. My point is, we are dealing with some very dangerous people. And these people are the kinds of folks that allow atrocious, horrible things to happen at the hands of government. These are the kinds of people that during the communist regimes and during the Nazi regimes and during other fascist regimes, they would be cheering it on and they would be saying, yeah, you know what? Those people do deserve that. Go ahead and take them away to a re-education camp. Go ahead and take them away to a worker camp. Sure, kill them. Well, they should have worn the mask. Well, they should have stayed home. Well, they should have just taken the temperature check. Well, maybe they shouldn't travel. Maybe they shouldn't have the right to leave their home. These are the kinds of things we're dealing with. And I'm sorry for those who don't see it yet, but this is not going away. We are dealing with 9/11 on an entire new level. This is an operation that is going on. I believe, of course, that COVID is real and that people are sick. I know people in the hospitals, but without a doubt, this is being taken advantage of at a rate we have not seen since 9/11. And because of that, my friends, I am broadcasting daily, trying to get important information to you, but also more than ever, I am focused on solutions. I need you to be focused on solutions too. That's what I meant about I'm not here for your entertainment. I want to be here with you, for you, as a collaborative force where we can work together to help pull people's minds out of the matrix. I mean, there's never been a more apt metaphor. People are literally asleep. They think that they're awake. They think that they're living and breathing, but they are indoctrinated. And there's all kinds of reasons that we can talk about. But the point is, those of us who see what's going on, we cannot sit around and wait for those around us who are the sleeping, the sleepwalkers to wake up. We need to just figure it out ourselves. We need to come together more than ever. So before we get into that, I want to remind you guys to bookmark theconsciousresistance.com. This is my website where you can find all of my content. The 5 books I've written, the 6th and 7th books I'm working on will be there. You can download them for free. My documentaries are there. You can watch them for free. You can check out the trailer for our new Pyramid of Power documentary. We're actually doing some crowdfunding that ends this Sunday. If anybody wants to throw some bones our way to help us make this completely user-funded, user-supported documentary to wake people up. And if you want to follow us, please don't follow us on Facebook. Don't follow us on YouTube. Although I appreciate the 61,000 subscribers, please follow us on Float. Join us at Minds. Join us on Hive. Sign up for my text list so you can get updates right to your phone. Join my Telegram channel. Also, please sign up for the Patreon account. Please join the library account where you can follow our videos, as well as BitChute. Now, today we're talking about taking action. The title of this video is Stop Wasting Time, Start Taking Action. And so many of you who follow my work for years, you know what the form of action I believe is most vital and most important, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about. It is a concept that I was introduced to in 2015 called freedom cells. What you are looking at right now is freedomcells.org. This is the website where you can come join, guys. I mean, I'm not going to do a whole rundown of what freedom cells are. You can watch this What is a Freedom Cell video that I recorded back in the day. You can see me with my short haircut and me explaining it back then. You can also scroll down here to our playlist, Freedom Cells Learning Center. You can see tons of videos that I've done, that John Bush has done, and they're also on the YouTube, on BitChute, and library as well. But the whole point is we need you to join this website. We have over 3,500 people now from all around the world. Let me show you guys this. So, you know, one of the things you do is you create a profile in here. You put what your interests are, what your skills are. Then you want to come over here to this member map. You want to add yourself to the map. This is a very crucial part. If you haven't done this, you need to add yourself to the map. But let's just go ahead and search and just see what the map looks like. This is members all over the world who have joined since we built this website. The original website existed for a couple of years, but we recently redid it. This is the map of the world, guys. Check this out. These are individuals who are active on this website. We need to get more people in Africa and South America. We need to reach more into Asia. But look at this. Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, all across Europe, across the United States, of course, Hawaii. People are joining. You can zoom in here. You can go look at your area and try to find more people. Connect with them. The whole goal is that we need to start building decentralized systems away from the system. As I've talked about in recent videos, they are now talking about cutting off people's power who are not complying with social distancing or mask wearing or whatever. Here's just an example of Houston. All the people who've joined in Houston, like, wow, I don't even know any of these people. I need to connect with these people. But they're talking about cutting people's power off, talking about going after people in their homes. You need to have a support system that you can connect with, and you need to make sure that you're not dependent on their grid. Now we can go over here to the cell map, cell locator map, and you can see that. So the first map is for the actual individual people, but you can also search cells, and cells are the names that we give for groups. The cells, like the cells in your body, these are independent, unique, individual cells that have their own resources, their own goals, their own agenda, dependent on their environment, dependent on their people and their needs. There's people in Mexico organizing cells and elsewhere. So if you're in an area, go add yourself to the map, come here and search in your area, see if there's anybody starting a cell in your community, like this cell here, Central Mexico, San Miguel. I know people out there. Those are good people. Go connect with them if you're in that area. And if you don't see anybody in your area, then you need to create a cell right here, come there, and make sure to add your cell to the map by putting the location on there. So that's how other people are going to find you. We need you to get as organized as possible. Use this website. It's not meant to be a social network where you post pictures of memes and cats and dogs and your food and all that. If you want to, that's fine. There's definitely lots of conversation that happens on here. You know, we're not going to tell people not to talk, but I would hope and pray that more people realize this website is to connect with people. This is to build in the real world. Freedom cells are decentralized groups of 7 to 8 people who come together to organize in skills, sharing ideas, growing food together, unplugging from these systems. And this used to be just kind of a quaint idea that I've been promoting for years. To me, it's been the solution. But I think some people thought, oh, that's a nice idea. Yeah, maybe one day I'll do that. But now more of you are realizing that this is the answer, that we need to unplug from these systems like yesterday. Because if you stay on that system, once they roll out the smart social credit and the smart cities and everything like that, which I've written about in my book, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State, then you, my friends, are going to be screwed. I mean, you're going to be stuck. You're going to be stuck in their system. So I want to let you guys know, if you want to know more about Freedom Cells, we are actually, the whole point of this video is we're actually having a Freedom Cell conference call. It's our 5th conference call, international conference call. I'm posting the details right now for anybody who's watching. You can see the link. It's a Zoom meeting. Also, wherever you're watching, Facebook, YouTube, look in the video description and you will see it. It's happening at 5 p.m. Central this Saturday, August 15th. So 5 p.m. Central, wherever you're at in the world, figure it out and you can join us. The Zoom link is there. And basically the whole point of the call is for people to come together and share, hey, this is what we're trying over here in Texas. Hey, this is what we're trying in New York. This is what we're trying in India. This is what we're trying in Australia. We can share ideas, we can share resources, we can share skills, and we can come together. This is one of the only real solutions. I'm speaking to myself now. Stop arguing with people on Facebook. Focus on the solutions. Focus on the good things. Don't get lost in the day-to-day fight that they want us to. The people up there, the top of the pyramid, they want us fighting and arguing with each other so that we don't get organized, so we don't unplug. And so when the shit hits the fan, as it is hitting the fan right now, then, basically we won't be prepared for it. I see a question. Is there a password required? There might be. Just look in the video description. It's got all the information there listed for you, Robert. Thank you for that question. Just look in the video description and you'll find everything there. But my point again is, look, I've been talking about Freedom Cells for a number of years. You can call them Freedom Cells, hubs, hives, circles. We don't care. The name doesn't matter. And also, you don't have to be an anarchist to be about Freedom Cells. You can be a left-wing, right-wing, constitutionalist, voluntarist, whatever, as long as you want to organize and get off their grid. And maybe even people who don't necessarily want to get off the grid, but they're looking to connect more with community. That's why we have the map. That's why we have the member map, the cell map. I'll show you guys again. You join the website, you create a profile. Here's my profile. I'll show you guys. At the Conscious Resistance, I put my skills. I put what I'm interested in learning. You add your location. Then you go to the member map. You search for people. And as I said, the map has been blowing up. We got people all around the world joining. We've got 3,500 people joined now. There's about 400 waiting to be approved. Make sure to check your spam mail. A lot of people don't check their spam and they never get the approval. And instead they message me and I have to manually set it up, which I don't mind doing, but it's a little time consuming. But look, all these people around the world are looking to connect with you guys, wherever you're at. And all these cells on the cell map are also looking to connect with people. Look at this, Texas Freedom Cell Network. You can search by cells. We've created Houston Freedom Cell right here. There's groups for Seed Swap. There's so much going on this website that I don't even have the time to keep up with it, but I'm trying to keep promoting it. New Yorkers, Brooklyn, Lewis and Sea Haven. I don't even know where the hell that's at, but that's cool. Southern Oregon, Collective, Independent, and Agorist Living. I love that. Social. That's freaking cool. So there's all kinds of awesome stuff happening here. Groups about EMF, home mitigation. I mean, again, we're not going to tell people how to organize, but please remember that the whole reason for this website is to help you connect with people so that you can connect in the real world. That's the whole goal. Build online, connect online, establish some sort of criteria for security culture to make sure that you're dealing with people you can trust and that you feel comfortable meeting somewhere in public. Get together, start discussing ideas, start discussing goals and resources, and get active, guys. Don't think that this is just entertainment. Myself, James Corbett, Mark Passio, Truth Stream Media, Dan Dix, We Are Change, Jason Burmis, all the other, Last American Vagabond, Ryan, all the different content creators that I know many of you consume, Spiro, Aaron from Health Nut News, all these different people, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. We're not just doing this because we like talking to ourselves on screen. I know many of those people, and I know that they're just as dedicated as I am to trying to change the world. So I'm trying to provide solutions. That's what my work has always been about. This is a solution. If you don't give it a shot, you have nobody to blame but yourself. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe you can do something better. Then please do it. But for God's sake, please start thinking about solutions. Please don't let your family and yourself get caught with your pants down because you were waiting till next year or another time, or because you think this COVID, insanity is just going to go away. It's not going to go away. The tyranny is only going to grow. And the people who think that this is a temporary thing and are submitting, they're not seeing the full picture. But if you've been following my work and if you know a little bit about the world, you know a little bit about history, then you know where this is headed, my friends. So please, 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 join us this Saturday at 5 p.m. Central for the 5th International Freedom Cell Conference call. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to say anything. You can just listen. It's going to be myself and John Bush hosting. We're going to share stories from people who have been really active in Freedom Cells and who are just kicking ass. We're going to take questions. It's a community building effort. And I also want to say, for those of you who are on Telegram, There is a Freedom Cell Network Telegram channel with about 158 people who conversate regularly. There's a Texas Freedom Cell Network. There's a bunch of people organizing both on the Freedom Cell website as well as on Telegram, creating their localized groups. That's what we need to do. So this is just a quick check-in, guys, to remind you, Saturday, 5 p.m., 5th International Freedom Cell Conference Call. Check out freedomcells.org. And please, 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 guys, take some precautions, take some effort into taking care of your family. And thank you to everybody who already has and who knows what's up. Help everybody you can. I'm going to leave it there, guys. I might have another video later this afternoon that I'm working on. But until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free, my friends. See you Saturday.